Following episode depicts acts of violence, sexual assault, and murder. Listener discretion is advised. It's around 6 a.m., January 31st, 1989. Lester Brohe, a maintenance worker at Anderson Tool and Stamping Company on Mason Street, is taking out the trash. Lester steps outside and turns the corner onto the factory's loading dock. He sees the body of a young black woman lying face down about 10 feet away below the loading dock. The woman, wearing a black leather jacket and jeans, is covered in blood. Later that day, she would be identified as 23-year-old Angela Jones. Angela had been killed just hours before Lester found her behind the Anderson Tool building. She had been stabbed multiple times.
Unsolved Worcester is brought to you by the following sponsors. Follow the crowd through the doors of Donut Homies and say hi to Haley Noel, the donut queen of Worcester's Canal District. This month, the specialty donut shop features special Easter-themed flavors like Cocoa Nest and Rainbow Peep. Donut Homies is open inside the Worcester Public Market at 160 Green Street every Wednesday through Sunday at 11 a.m. Online ordering with delivery and pickup options is available at donuthomies.com. Follow Donut Homies on Facebook and Instagram for monthly menu drops, specials, and more. Donut Homies, everything sweeter with the homies.
Welcome to Unsolved Worcester. I'm your host, Dan Yeager. In today's episode, we share the unsolved murder case of 23-year-old Angela Jones, one of 10 unsolved murder cases we will be exploring during Season 4 of Unsolved Worcester. Angela's body was discovered on a loading dock behind a tool factory on Mason Street in late January 1989. She'd been stabbed to death and robbed. Unsolved Worcester takes a deep dive every Tuesday and Thursday into the unsolved murders and missing persons cases under investigation by the Worcester Police Department's Detective Unit. Our goal is to remind residents of the Worcester area, both past and present, that there are dozens of unsolved homicides and missing persons cases that need resolution. We hope we can be the spark needed to solve a case. Be sure to visit Unsolved Worcester on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and listen to all the episodes for free at unsolvedworcester.com on your favorite podcast streaming platforms, and watch our accompanying videos on YouTube. Angela Jones was killed between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. on January 31st, 1989. Her murder was the first homicide in Worcester in that year. The medical examiner determined Angela died of multiple stab wounds with hemorrhaging. When Angela was discovered covered in blood behind the Anderson Tool factory hours after she was killed, she was still fully clothed, minus her left shoe missing. And it was clear she had been robbed. All she had on her were the clothes on her back. She didn't have any money or identification on her. Angela was identified through fingerprints. Surrounding the spot where Angela was found was several shards of broken glass, but police were quick to determine the glass wasn't used to kill Angela. 2 hours after Angela was found behind the factory, her body was removed from the scene. Police roped off the crime scene. The very morning Angela's body was found, the owners of Anderson Tool and Stamping told police they would put up a permanent fence and outdoor lighting for safety purposes and in hopes of avoiding any further criminal activity near the building. The Anderson Tool Factory was located at 60 Mason Street, taking up half a block between Parker Street and Pemberton Street. Mason Street runs from Pleasant Street to May Street in Worcester's main south neighborhood. Mason Street is 2 blocks east of Park Avenue and just 1 street over and running parallel to Dewey Street, where the double homicide of William Vega and Elizabeth Matos would occur 12 years later in March 2001. The story behind the murders of William and Elizabeth was shared in our very first episode of Unsolved Worcester. Today, the factory is now the home of Redemption Christian Center International Church. So how did Angela end up behind the tool factory on Mason Street? Here's what we know about Angela Jones in the days leading up to her murder. At the time of her death, Angela was living at the Whittier, a 4-story rooming house with 42 tenants at 257 Pleasant Street and the corner of Fruit Street. For about a year, Angela lived at the Whittier with James Watson, who told police he hadn't heard from Angela in the 2 days before she was killed. Oddly, when interviewed by police, the manager of the Whittier said she didn't recognize the name Angela Jones as a tenant. On the morning of Saturday, January 28, 1989, 3 days before she was killed, it's believed that Angela left the Pleasant Street rooming house and traveled to Fitchburg to visit her mother, Patricia Williams. Watson told police that Angela called her from her mother's home in Fitchburg the next day, Sunday, January 29th, to let him know she was on her way back to Worcester. Here's how the next 48 hours played out according to the information Watson shared with the Worcester PD. Angela returned to Worcester, but didn't go to Watson's room at the Whittier. Instead, she spent Sunday night at the home of a friend and spent Monday with her friend's sister. Watson said Angela's friend's sister was with Angela until Angela hopped into the passenger seat of a car and the car drove off. It's unknown where in Worcester Angela got into the car or who she got into the car with. Like we've said many times already on Unsolved Worcester, if we are to believe Watson's story that Angela got into the car, it's likely Angela knew the person driving the car. It's likely she knew her killer. She got into the car and wasn't seen alive again. Coming up, police search for the car Angela was killed in and a murder weapon. When the maintenance worker at Anderson Tool Company discovered the body of Angela Jones on January 31st, 1989, shattered glass surrounded the crime scene. As we mentioned before, police were quick to determine that the shard of glass wasn't used to stab Angela multiple times. That's because the glass near Angela's body was from a car window. Police determined the vehicle Angela was in was a small, dark-colored car, and whoever owned it was driving around with a broken window. Within 24 hours, police had found several small cars with broken windows, but not the car they were looking for. Not only could they not find the car, police were unable to find the murder weapon. The WPD only determined it was a knife used to stab Angela, but they were never able to recover the weapon. What they were able to positively determine is this: Angela was stabbed to death inside of the suspect's vehicle, and then her body was dumped below the loading dock behind the Anderson Tool Factory on Mason Street. In the days following her murder, Angela's family held a private memorial service. Sharon Allen, who lived with Angela's mother, Patricia, in Fitchburg, told reporters the family wanted to be left alone and they had nothing to say about Angela's death. And that's the last we would hear about the unsolved murder of Angela Jones. Angela's death is one of 12 unsolved homicides from the 1980s under investigation by the Worcester Police Department's Detective Bureau. A list which includes the 1984 murder of Patricia Gagne from episode 1 of this season, the May 1987 murder of Brian McAllister from Unsolved Worcester Season 2, and the June 1989 murder of 17-year-old Nereda Melendez from Season 1. Later this season, we will share the stories of 2 other unsolved murders from the 1980s, including the murders of Patricia Evans in August of 1987 and John Riley in August 1989. Thank you for listening. I'm Dan Yeager. Don't miss another episode. Click the notification button to get alerts when new episodes of Unsolved Worcester drop. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, please consider clicking the like button for us. And if you subscribe, the next episodes will show up in your feed. Click the bell on the right and select all, and you'll get a notification of when the next episode is ready. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, please leave them in the comments below. We do read them all and respond to as many as we can. Anyone with information about what happened to Angela Jones are asked to contact the Worcester Police Detective Bureau at 508-799-8651 or send an anonymous text to 274-637. Write TIP WPD plus your message, or send an anonymous web-based message at worcesterma.gov/police. Come back on Tuesday for episode 3 of Unsolved Worcester Season 4 as we explore the murder of Paulette Andrea in Crompton Park in September 1992. Paulette was strangled to death. Special thanks to Worcester Public Library, the Worcester Police Department, the City of Worcester, and our sponsors for making this possible. Information on the murder of Angela Jones was gathered from multiple resources, including the Telegram and Gazette and more. The Unsolved Worcester podcast music is provided by Tom Lebelzik of the Worcester Jazz Collective. This episode is written and produced by Pat Sargent. Drone footage provided by Ron Scott at New England Sky Pics. Videography and editing by Colin Turner. Sponsorship information announcer Chandler Walsh. Be sure to check out the video for this episode with exclusive aerial views and more on our Unsolved Worcester YouTube page. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This program is supported in part by a grant from the Worcester Arts Council and the National Endowment for the Arts. To find out more about how National Endowments for the Arts grants impact individuals and communities, visit www.arts.gov.